Thanks so much for tuning into WazUp San Diego. Today, I am joined by the one and only super agent for Patrick McCombs, the character behind Jerry Maguire. I've been looking forward to this for over a week, Leigh Steinberg. So how are you doing?
Pleasure to be with you. Doing great.
Absolutely. I love it. So just so you know, Jerry Maguire was one of my favorite movies growing up and just fascinates me, and did a lot of research and really dug into a little bit more, kind of about your life and, your entrepreneurship background. And one thing that really resonated to me, which I see just kind of off everywhere, is just kind of like you're values driven. And has that been kind of the key to your success, or what do you think is, your major differentiating factor from everybody else?
So my dad raised me with two core values. One was to treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was to try to make a meaningful difference in the world, make an impact in a positive way, and especially help people who are at risk or cannot help themselves. And so the guiding light of my practice all these years has been the athlete as role model, retracing their roots and going back to the high school, collegiate, professional community and setting up a charitable program or a charitable foundation. So it's how we can work together to make it a better world. And we can tackle anything from bullying to domestic violence to sex trafficking to racism to the environment by athletes being role models. So if the heavyweight boxer Lennox Lewis cuts a public service announcement, which he did, for saying real men don't hit women, it can do more to trigger imitative behavior towards rebellious adolescents and the right way to treat women than 1,000 authority figures ever could.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime somebody that I respect and is my idol, a role model, like a Lennox Lewis is saying, "Hey, let's do this," it's going to resonate with kids, and that might not take effect for 10 years, 15 years. You don't know that one person that you kind of really strike a chord with could change millions of lives. And
so the question really has been, how can we make a difference in the world? One of the very first programs we ever did was with the place kicker, Rolf Benerschke of the San Diego Chargers. And his great link was to the San Diego Zoo. And he gave money for every field goal he kicked to the Fund for Endangered Species at the San Diego Zoo, and set up a poster pledge card program. So a big businessman could give $1,000, a little kid a nickel, for every field goal he kicked, and it was called Kicks for Critters. And he kicked it off kicking a field goal off a sea lion's flipper, and the next year he kicked one off a baby elephant's hoof, and was able to unite a whole community behind that cause. And that program that generated in San Diego is the genesis for every program you see at a stadium linking athletic performance to charitable donations.
Wow. And so you kind of really spearheaded that trend, which is everywhere now. You do see it kind of everywhere. Oh, that's awesome. And kind of getting back to that value, is that how, you've attracted in kind of a lot of your clients? And also, because I think that's a huge differentiating factor. And long term, you want to work with people that you like, trust, are going to be that good role models. And every industry is a little bit different, and I think that is just so unique.
So really, Luke, if you think about it, the most important skill, I think, in life is the ability to intelligently listen. If you can have another human being share with you their deepest anxieties and fears and their greatest hopes and dreams, if you can get into their heart and mind and see the world the way they see it from their perspective, then you can gracefully navigate your way through life. It's the ability to peel back the layer of the onion and understand another person's value system and what really is critical to them, whether it's short-term economic gain or spiritual values or long-term security or family or geographical location or making an impact. Whatever it is, it's necessary to not deal with people generically, but what really is in their heart and their mind, and try to craft solutions or try to fulfill their dreams.
Yeah, it sounds like you can only really do that if you're trying to develop a real relationship, which kind of stems back to what you were just saying. And and how do you personally kind of go deep with somebody like that to find out their true passions, their fears, their hopes, their dreams, kind of everything. So if you don't know what makes them tick or what they're trying to accomplish, you can't help them reach their goal. So how do you kind of peel back those layers in a way?
By creating a climate of trust so someone
100%.
feels comfortable opening up, and then gently probing and asking questions and allowing people to have the time and space to reveal themselves. It's people always think it's all about suasion and how they speak, but a lot is how they listen. And if you can tune in to another person without having some generic perception of what they might be like or should be like, who are they
Mhm.
really?
Yeah. Or even just kind of an agenda of your own and really trying to help them. I'm a big advocate. I say it all too much is, doing the right thing is the right thing always, and it will always pay off in the long run. And we'll tell people like, hey, this is not a good scenario for you, even though it makes short-term sense, but long-term, it would benefit me, but it's not. And you should hold off, you should pause, or you should try something else.
And telling the truth to a person, especially in our field, an athlete could be on a 90-story building ready to jump, and he'd be surrounded by sycophants and friends who would tell him, law of gravity doesn't apply to you. You can fly. So my job is to reality-base people, to deal with them holistically, to set the groundwork for second career, and to try to unlock the potential in each person to understand, what their ultimate destiny is.
No, and that's amazing. You obviously deal with a lot more high profile, like the amount of #1 NFL draft picks. I think it was a record 8 of them, and just going through your list of clients is, blew my mind. Some of the just iconic stars that I have been my role models kind of growing up.
But I've also tried to take issues that bother me. I did a project with then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, where we demined minefields in Cambodia, Angola, and
Wow.
Mozambique. We've had a Sporting Green Alliance that takes sustainable technology in wind, solar, recycling, resurfacing, and water to stadia, arena, and practice fields to try and drop carbon emissions and drop energy costs, and turn them into teaching platforms. So if you go to a stadium, you can see a waterless urinal, you can see a solar panel, and think about how you integrate those concepts in your own life. So we all can make a difference in our own way and in our own time. Good parenting is probably our most sacred function. So raising kids well with security and love is also critical.
No, absolutely. What would be, I guess, kind of one thing that you're most proud of that you've done, kind of, maybe outside of work realm, but what you're talking about, demining in Cambodia that, maybe the mass population doesn't know, but you felt has made a huge impact, and, it's not as glamorous, but is worthwhile.
I felt in the wake of Oklahoma City that skinheads were somehow coming to the ascendancy, and that hatred was starting to play too big a role in our country. So I set up a training program with the Anti-Defamation League where we trained 30 young volunteers. We had this program go on in San Diego, and we taught them how to spot skinheads and hate groups, and we taught them how to intervene in crisis situations, and we taught them how to go into school systems and promote ethnic tolerance and diversity. And at the end of it, we trained about 8,000 all across the country in the biggest 30 cities. So it was the advanced guard against hate, and hopefully created a climate that was much more tolerant and much more accepting.
Wow. When was this?
I did that program in the 80s and 90s, and the time to do it once again is upon us.
It really, really is. And we are going through kind of a once in a lifetime, this is being filmed right now during, COVID, to where, the face-to-face relationships and everything's digital. During this time, how has that kind of, shifted the way you're interacting with clients? Or have you found out any habits that you're doing that you're getting rid of, or new things that you've adopted that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life and career?
Well, first of all, I think the seminal question is not what you can't do during the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do?
Adapting.
Can you use this break in your life to contemplate what your career goals are, get closer to your higher power, get closer to your friends, find a hobby or interest that you haven't been able to explore, fix up the house, stay physically fit. What is it that this time break gives you the capacity to do? So the concept of killing time is the only essence of life that we can't replace. It's irreplaceable. So you have to figure out what you can do, and in business, try to be more clever and creative. Now, I did go with my younger lawyer, Chris Cabot, to draft days, and we had our VP of Media, Julia Farron, go too. And so we were able to travel for that. It was a very interesting world, being like one of 5 or 6 people on a plane. But we're using Zoom. We're using every new concept of communication. And luckily, we live in a world where that was science fiction when I was growing up, but where you and I can look at each other and actually have a conversation. We may not be able to shake hands, but but we certainly can communicate. And so the question is how you can be innovative. We were able to have a series of players drafted. Part of scouting got cut off, but they had enough information. They did a virtual draft. So how creative can we be? I think that hundreds of millions of Americans have shown extraordinary discipline and dedication to staying home and being safe. But now we need to use the same creativity and innovation for how we start the economy, because it's time.
No, absolutely. And it's so true that, a lot of, some of these physical retail shops are just, unfortunately, going to close down permanently. But on a lot of great things, like the Zoom calls right now are amazing. And I find myself personally, instead of calling people sometimes, I'm just FaceTiming them, just even like buddies, to kind of get that one-on-one communication. Because, 80% of communication is not just the words. It's like, hey, how you doing? Versus, hey, how you doing? And you can see facial expressions and see all that. And it's so powerful.
Right. And this is a time you can grow your hair long, because you can't get a haircut anyway.
I actually grew it out super long, and then I shaved it. But I wore a hat this morning, so it's like coming up weird. I'm like, oh, I know. Yeah. And it's crazy. And just kind of on the entrepreneurial side, because, everybody's career kind of has, some ups and downs, and, nobody is immune to that. How did you find yourself when, things were going great and then kind of came down? How did you kind of get that kickstart and bump to go back up? Because I feel like some people, the mindset's just not in the right place, and people are starting to come around, but like, use this. What would be a piece of advice to, hey, you're at the bottom, let's go back out there, let's get it? I know you did a big revamp, 2010?
It's necessary to have a sense of optimism, to be able to see there's light at the end of the tunnel. And again, not just conceptualize yourself as handcuffed, but what is there that you can do? In a new business, we live in an entrepreneurial world. In addition to representing athletes, I've been able to establish a whole series of new businesses that are athletes up on the internet, or something new that can make a difference in concussion. So the key is to find a niche in the world that's unexploited, find a novel solution, drive it out to market, make it ubiquitous so that by the time someone comes along to imitate you, they want your product. And innovate. There are all sorts of niches in this economy that are looking for solutions, or looking for new approaches. So I'll give you an example. Let's talk about millennials going to a football game or a baseball game. Well, if you're used to multitasking and that's your mode, and you're used to being able to do about 4 things at once, then to sit in a football game with 25 minutes of actual action may be boring. So we're developing a app that would be on your phone, and down one side would run your fantasy stats and all your picks. Down the other side would run your gambling bets. Underneath, you'd have the capacity to text or talk smack to somebody in or out of the stadium. You would allow the fans to vote on one play call a game that the coach had to call. You'd allow the fans to vote on one referee overturn. Now, when you touch that app, you can order from the snack bar, and you can also get an unending amount of other content, other games, puzzles, quizzes, all of which eventually lead to monetization. So it's coming up with a new novel solution or product that can work in this world. There's going to be lots of opportunity, and so we need that entrepreneurial, resilient spirit, and for people to understand that we all get knocked back in life. We get pushed back. Our greatest plans go awry. But can you be resilient? Can you rise again from the ashes to find a happier life?
Yeah, it comes down to kind of grit and determination, and stickability is a word that always kind of comes to me. And you're always going to get punched in the face in life, and it's just you just keep moving forward. And I think part of it is you have to have that passion and that drive behind it, and they have to align in order to get there. And then one of the things that I saw that you're recently doing is it's called the Agents. Tell me about the program, the online programs you're having right now.
So we've been trying to provide a forum and an opportunity for young people that want to break into the world of sports.
Mm-hmm.
One way we do it is through an agent academy, which we'll have 9 this year, or probably 8 more. And then we do a sports career conference. That will be virtual. So you can sign up by going to steinbergsports.com, Sports Career Conference, May 30th. And for an hour, you get to sit and listen to people who are journalists who either write or do on-air television on the internet, PR people. You can see people who brand and market. You can see people that work for a team, a league, a conference, an athletic department, people in sports entrepreneurship and sports charity. And so you get the greatest experts in the country, and there's some interactive aspects to it with mentoring and the rest of it. But it's to give people a taste for the amazing number of jobs there are in the sports industry, and some tips on how to break in.
Yeah, absolutely. Things that, I know a lot of people go to school and, book-wise learn everything, but it's how do I, brass tacks, how do you actually use it in the real world and develop relationships?
Exactly. Because the point is, you can go to business school or law school or sports marketing, and they will teach you the principles of each of those areas. That doesn't help you really know how to negotiate or administrate or create or write or all the different aspects that can go into it. And we try to teach some specific skills. I ask each person, how did you break in? How did you get started? What skills are essential to be in this field?
Absolutely. And that's the greatest thing about having that panel is when you're having 5 or 6 people up there, like everybody operates slightly different. And like, hey, that I know that's the way I operate. I want to, I call it R&D, rip off and duplicate. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Obviously, you can tweak it a little bit to, make it fit your own. But hey, here's the general structure. I'm going to change it a little bit, and then boom, that's how I want to focus my business model. That's what kind of really drew me to you. Was that value driven, I think, really kind of that relationship, and that's how I have more grown my business personally.
So I think one of the keys is to try to avoid situational ethics. So that means people that are nice to their neighbors,
Hmm.
nice to cats and dogs, but then go out in the workplace and use heinous social Darwin tactics, because after all, the end justifies the means. I don't think so. I think you are how you work. And the same values that you use in terms of every fundamental relationship have to also be true in the workplace, so that it leads to a type of soul death when people think the end justifies the means and they're capable of doing dishonest things and lying and all the rest. You can build a business based on sound ethics and principles that doesn't embody any of that and feel much better about yourself.
Yeah, and it's sustainable, and just the world right now with, social media, and, between LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and all this, it's like, hey, you can put up this facade, but you can't put it up everywhere, and people are going to find out, the true you and who you really are, and just being yourself. I'm kind of, I'm not that suit and tie guy personally, clients and certain things, and that's just me. But quick question, just kind of on a softer note, is what is like one of the most memorable kind of experience or craziest things you've ever, done in your career with, clients or,
I think one of the highs is always having a quarterback win in the Super Bowl. And this year we had that with Patrick Mahomes. But I recall years ago, Steve Young had been in the shadow of Joe Montana with the 49ers. And like every person trying to replace a legend, nothing he did was ever good enough. So he went down to Miami, played in the Super Bowl, threw 6 touchdown passes, was the MVP. And I ran out on the field afterwards, and he ran up and hugged me, and he said, "The monkey's off my back, the monkey's off my back." Presenting Warren Moon at the Hall of Fame, who had played 23 years of football and was a consummate role model, and who had me give his presenting speech. That was an honor. We have 11 players in the Hall of Fame. And then having a player picked #1 in the NFL draft is extraordinary. Draft day is a consummation of all the effort and work that someone's been putting in since they were in Pop Warner. And you come to draft night, we were just with Tua Tagovailoa, and he got drafted by the Dolphins. Well, the tension ratchets up and ratchets up, and no one is precisely sure what will happen. And then there's one ecstatic moment where, boom, the player gets picked, and his extended family and friends are all in ecstatic joy, and it's a rush.
I bet. Just even that kind of gave me the chills and just that overwhelming joy. So, Leigh, I greatly appreciate your time. So if anybody wanted to check out any of the, the agent, I apologize, I don't want to butcher the name. What was it again?
Sports Career Conference.
Sports Career Conference. And I know you have some other going on for entrepreneurship in general.
And for agency. And so they can go to steinbergsports.com. I tweet at Leigh Steinberg. We have Steinberg Sports that tweets. You can find me on, I write for LinkedIn and for the USA Today football section. And so anyway, I'm not hard to find.
Well, again, you are a legend. So grateful to have you on the show, Leigh. Again, people, make sure you're checking it out. I personally definitely going to check out one of those seminars. I love getting perspectives from different industries and see how I can incorporate it into mine. So again, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning into WazUp San Diego, and I will see you next week.